Thank you very much for the introduction and the chance to be here today. I will talk about quick, accurate, and cost-efficient point-of-care diagnostics today. So first of all, talking about the problem with diagnostics. If you look into diagnostic testing today, the typical problem is that a lot of these diagnostic tests are sent to centralized laboratories. That means prolonged response times, delay in treatment, complicated and costly logistics, poor sampling, error-prone sample handling, because there will be mistakes when you have to handle the samples a lot. And of course, the need for complex and expensive equipment. There are, of course, alternatives to these, you can see, a general way of doing diagnostics. You have all tried this during the COVID-19 crisis. There's these quick tests. They're very easy to use. They're very, you can say, cost efficient. You get quick results. The problem with those is that they're very unreliable. One of the other problems with today's diagnostic testing is that they're very diagnose specific. So when you have an indication, you get a yes/no answer. And again, you've tried this with COVID. Either you have COVID or you have not. It's a very binary answer. Today's diagnostic tests lack this holistic perspective where you can test a lot of different things at the same time. So what is the solution? We believe that PanViral is the solution. PanViral is a small, neat little box. You can actually see it right here. It's ultra fast, so we have the diagnostic time from taking the sample to getting the results within 10 to 15 minutes. We have accuracy in line with the PCR-based technologies. We can do parallel testing, meaning we can scan for a whole range of different diseases at the same time, or we can scan a lot of different patients at the same time. It's highly flexible. It's very easy to modify the system to test for new infectious disease. It's very easy to use. And again, I actually have the first model that came off the assembly line today. It's standing here on the table. And it's very cost efficient. This is an example of how the data looks when we use PanViral. If you see in the bottom of the graph, that is a negative COVID sample or negative COVID samples. And what you can see here on the top is that if you have COVID present in the patient sample, then we can detect that very early on and very precisely. And again, it has been a really great day for Diagonal today. We had a press release out at 1 o'clock today because we had the first machine out from the manufacturing line for research use only. This is a really great step for us. We talk a little bit about the history and the milestones. Then the company was founded in 2020. We went on Nasdaq First North in Stockholm in July last year. We had the patent granted this year in June. And that's, of course, the whole foundation of actually starting the commercialization of PanViral, is that we have protection of the technology in PanViral. We also published data where we showed that PanViral was able to detect 4 different viruses, all in around 4 minutes, with the same, 10 minutes, with the same accuracy as we see with the PCR-based technologies today. This was COVID, influenza A, influenza B, and RS virus. But again, the machine is universal, so it looks for a specific marker in the genetic material and then amplifies that, and that is what we detect. We also had our first letter of intent signed here in September. That was signed with Center of Diagnostic for the DTU in Copenhagen, an accredited laboratory that tested up to 12,000 COVID samples per day during the COVID-19 crisis for the Danish government. They will do a comparison test where they will compare the performance of PanViral with the quick tests and also the PCR-based technologies. That will be a very, very important data. And then again, today is actually a very great day for Diagonal. Seeing the first device for the first time, being able to actually do testing with this device is of course going to be a game changer for us. So what are the market opportunities? If you look into the global infectious disease diagnostic market, then it's valued at around $40 billion. And it spans across anything from COVID, sepsis, sexually transmitted diseases, and so forth. The biggest market is in the US, followed by EU, Asian Pacific, and then we have Middle East and Africa as the last region. The way that we plan to commercialize this, and that's typically for in vitro diagnostic devices, is that you either lease out the device or you sell it at a very low margin. And where you actually then make the revenue is then for the consumable parts. So as you can see here in the picture, there is a cartridge that goes with PanViral, and that's a single-use cartridge. And of course also a reaction mix that can detect different infectious diseases. That is where we will make the money. To start early commercialization, then we actually plan to use to start dialogues about out-licensing. This is much easier now that we actually have a machine. People can take the machine and actually do testing and see they can actually verify what we are saying. This will of course be in segments that is not in the scope of the original diagonal scope. We have also looked into other options. So we have had interest for segments outside, you can say, the general in vitro diagnostics in humans. There have been veterinarians and also for the agricultural space that have shown interest, where PanViral could actually help to minimize, you can say, diseases in big animal productions or in crop production. If we look into the regulatory strategy or the path to markets, then we are looking at multiple directions. First of all, the last couple of months, we have been really focused on getting the research use version ready of PanViral together with our partners, OIM. This enables us to initiate these commercial discussions at a whole different level. We have also set up this pilot testing with Center of Diagnostics, where we can now start to generate some scientific data that can endorse the system. And of course, next step is to take some of these machines from the early phase and get them certified so they follow what's called the general safety regulations. That means we can start early commercialization. We can sell them as benchtop devices for research or, in, for example, the agricultural space, where the regulatory burden is not that high. We also have the option to go into the US under what's called an EUA, emergency use approval, because PanViral can test some of the most deadly diseases in the world. As soon as we have the first country, approval in the first country, then it's fairly easy to go to Middle East or Far East. They always use a reference country, so as soon as you have approval in one place, then it's fairly quickly to move to some of these other countries. And of course, we will continue to work on the full CE marking under IVDR, also for launch in Europe. Very briefly about the team. We have a very strong and dedicated team. We have deep scientific knowledge, experience in innovation, and also in business development. And we, of course, also have a very strong board that helps us push all the way. So with that, I would like to thank you, and I would be happy to answer some questions.
The machine is in the way from my computer.
I can move it a little bit.
It's okay. And you released this today, right?
Yes, we had the press release out at 1 o'clock today.
And what does this mean for your company to have it like this, to finally see it?
It's a fantastic milestone. I mean, from having the initial idea back in 2020 to actually have a machine where we can do testing. I mean, that's fantastic. And also paves the way now to do pilot testing and to start commercial discussions at a whole different level than before.
It feels like things have gone quite fast because you were founded in 2020, right?
Yes.
So in 2 years, you finally, or just 2 years, you have this. Isn't that remarkably swift? Or
we have really done a fantastic job, also together with our partners. They're also here today, OIM. But we have really pushed hard. And of course, this is just the first version for research use only. there are several steps actually to get the full CE marking before we can launch it as an in vitro diagnostic device in Europe.
To be able to produce more of these ones, do you need to take in more money, or how is it with the cash?
Right now we have sourced for around 20-25 machines, so we have enough to start a lot of different pilot testing with different partners. Some of these we also plan to do this general safety with, so we could actually start commercial sales, maybe a private clinic, a farmer, something like that. It will be very small scale, but at least this will be, you can say, pave the way for more commercial activities.
When you try to introduce the concept and explain it to potential customers, what kind of feedback do you get?
I think there's a huge interest in the market because everybody here have tried this. You can take the PCR test, which is the gold standard of diagnostics today, but everybody knows that in some cases it takes days before you get answers back. And then of course you have the quick test, yeah, very easy to use, but you can't really use the results for anything. It's just an indication. Combining the two here, where you have the speed and the accuracy, that's really groundbreaking. And then at the same time, being able to test multiple samples at the same time, that could save you multiple visits to the clinics. Again, really, really great, I think.
Peter, do you have questions for Jack?
I have, thank you. Thank you for the great presentation as well.
Thank you.
So in your IPO prospect, it was stated that Panviral would reach commercial phase in the second half of 2022. But in the last quarterly report, you stated that you will now, during the autumn, start with beta testing of Panviral with partners and key opinion leaders. So is the goal of reaching commercial phase during the second half of 2022 still intact?
We still have time left in 2022, and as I just said, we need the general safety. Then we can basically start, you can say, commercial sales. It will be a small scale, of course, but we could still have the first sales. We could also start, you can say, commercial activities in the sense that we could do out-licensing deals and some other activities that could bring capital into the company.
Okay, so what are the main risks for a delay of a commercial phase?
It depends on how you see it. So we actually already modified you can say, the path to market. The idea was to actually focus on the European market, launching a CE marked in vitro diagnostic device on the IVDR. But this is a general thing that when the EU made this law, there was a limitation in notified bodies. So there will be a lot of companies who will be delayed in actually getting that route to market. And that is why we took the steps that we have done now, where we're looking into alternative path to make sure we don't delay the commercialization steps.
Okay, so an obvious risk for all companies in the research and development phase. Now we don't really know where you are. You said you're slightly in a commercial phase, but there are risks for more cash burn, of course. So if you must guess, when will Diagonal Bio be cash flow positive?
I would prefer not to answer that question because otherwise you will use it against me next time I stand here. So yeah.
So to summarize the investment case, we really do like that the insider ownership is high in Diagonal Bio, as 1/3 of the company is owned by insiders. Additionally, there has never occurred that an insider has sold shares in the company since it went public, which we also really like. So the main risk we see is that there might be delays of reaching commercial phase. And lastly, we believe Diagonal Bio has potential given the enormous market, and we find it compelling that the company is really closing in on being a company in commercial phase. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Jack Egelund Madsen, Diagonal Bio.